911. What's your emergency? The voice on the line was calm, professional, a stark contrast to the panic erupting on the other end. Trainer down. Titan has Ava. He has her in the water. We need help now. It was supposed to be another flawless performance at Ocean World, Florida, a breathtaking spectacle of trust, a delicate dance between a gifted young woman and the ocean's most formidable predator. Ava Campbell, her name synonymous with a rare, almost mystical connection with these magnificent creatures, was at the heart of it. But on that sun-drenched February afternoon, the shimmering illusion of harmony between human and killer whale shattered, replaced by a primal terror that would grip a nation and leave an indelible scar on the world of marine entertainment. This is the story of Ava Campbell, a life devoted to the deep, and the day the deep, in its most powerful form, tragically reclaimed one of its own. Ava Campbell wasn't just another marine mammal trainer. She was a prodigy, a whisperer of the waves. From the time she was a little girl growing up near the coast of California, captivated by documentaries of Jacques Cousteau and trips to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, the ocean's mysteries had called to her. While other kids collected baseball cards or obsessed over pop stars, Ava was memorizing the nuanced clicks and whistles of dolphins, sketching the powerful forms of orcas, and dreaming of a life spent alongside them. Her bedroom walls were a testament to her passion. Posters of breaching humpbacks, detailed drawings of cetacean anatomy, and books on marine biology stacked high. She devoured every piece of information she could find. By 10, she could mimic the calls of several local whale species with uncanny accuracy, a skill that amused her family and astonished her science teachers. Her summers were spent volunteering at a local marine rescue center, cleaning tanks, preparing food, and observing the animals with an intensity that belied her youth. She asked questions no one else thought to ask, not just about their physical needs, but about their moods, their social interactions, their very essence. Her academic path was a straight line to her calling. She earned a biology degree with honors from a prestigious West Coast university, specializing in marine behavior. But it wasn't just her academic accolades that set her apart. It was an almost preternatural ability to connect with the animals, to read their subtle cues, to understand their unspoken language. Colleagues often marveled at it. They'd speak of an invisible thread that seemed to link Ava to the orcas, those colossal black and white predators of the sea that others treated with a necessary, healthy caution. The orcas, in turn, seemed to lean into her presence, responding to her with a trust and gentleness that baffled even veteran trainers. It was no surprise when, within a year of graduation, Ocean World, the flagship marine park renowned for its spectacular orca shows, recruited her. For Ava, it was a dream manifested, a culmination of a lifetime's devotion. She rose quickly through the ranks, her innate talent and tireless dedication making her one of the park's most trusted and beloved orca handlers. Visitors would remember her by name, their children's faces lighting up as Ava, with a radiant smile and effortless grace, guided the magnificent orcas through their routines. Newer trainers looked to her for guidance, for her calm demeanor and profound understanding of the animals in their care. Ava wasn't just a performer in the sprawling, multi-million-gallon pools. She was a protector, a quiet advocate. Behind the scenes, away from the roar of the crowd and the meticulously choreographed splashes, she fought for better treatment, for more enrichment, for a deeper respect for the whales. She understood the immense intelligence, the complex social structures, and the vast needs of these creatures. She believed, fiercely, in coexistence, in a bond built on mutual respect, not dominance. "They don't work for us," she'd often say to new recruits, her voice gentle but firm. "We work together." But in the dazzling, high-stakes world of marine entertainment, not everything is as it appears on the sunlit stage. Behind the perfectly timed jumps, the synchronized waves, and the smiling trainers lay a complex and often fraught reality. The animals, these intelligent, emotional, and sometimes unpredictable beings, were living in an environment, a universe away from their natural ocean homes. And Ava, for all her empathy and expertise, knew this better than most. Ocean World Marine Park stood as a monument to human fascination with the sea, a sprawling oasis built along the Florida coast, stretching over 60 acres of carefully engineered enclosures, state-of-the-art theaters, and shimmering artificial lagoons. It attracted millions of visitors each year, eager for a glimpse into the underwater world. The park's crown jewel, its most electrifying attraction, was the Orca Spectacular, a high-energy, emotionally charged show featuring some of the largest predators ever held in captivity. Behind the towering glass barriers and the crashing, orchestrated waves, these killer whales performed with breathtaking precision. They leaped, spun, and splashed on cue, creating awe in the eyes of children and wonder in the hearts of adults. But this spectacle concealed a long and complicated history, one filled with beauty, yes, but also shadowed by the inherent compromises of captivity. Ocean World's Orca program had begun over 3 decades ago, during an era when capturing wild orcas was still a disturbingly common practice in some parts of the world. Early shows were often simpler displays of power and obedience. Over time, however, as public awareness and scientific understanding grew, the choreography became more elaborate, the interactions seemingly more intimate. Trainers entered the water with the animals, surfing on their dorsal fins, being launched into the air from their rostrums, and even sharing gentle kisses on the nose. It was a narrative of interspecies friendship, carefully crafted and powerfully sold. But what the public often didn't see, or perhaps chose not to see, was the immense psychological and physical pressure placed on both humans and animals to maintain this illusion of perfect harmony. Among the orcas at Ocean World, one, in particular, stood out: Titan, a massive 11,000-pound bull. Titan had been captured off the coast of Iceland as a young calf, torn from his family pod and the endless expanse of the North Atlantic. He had spent over 20 years in captivity. At 23 feet long, he was a commanding, almost primeval presence. Muscular, broad-finned, his sleek black skin bearing the faint, deep scarring on his flanks from past dominance battles with other males in the park's complex social hierarchy. Trainers described Titan as intelligent, certainly, but also moody and unpredictable. His file, a thick ledger of observations and behavioral notes, chronicled numerous close calls over the years. Moments when he failed to respond to commands, showed clear signs of agitation, or displayed territorial behavior towards staff in the pool. None of these incidents had, by sheer luck or quick intervention, resulted in serious injury. But they were recorded, noted, and filed away in internal incident reports, documents that rarely, if ever, made it outside the park's carefully managed public image. Experts in marine mammal behavior, like Dr. Elaine Satterfield, a renowned marine biologist and a one-time consultant to Ocean World, had long warned about the potential for such captive environments to breed frustration and psychological distress in orcas. When you remove an animal like an orca from its natural environment, Dr. Satterfield had stated in a widely read paper, you're not just putting its body in a tank, you're putting its mind in a box. And sometimes, that box breaks. These animals, she and others argued, are evolved for roaming up to 100 miles a day in the wild, traveling in tight-knit family pods, forming complex, lifelong social bonds, and communicating in unique, pod-specific dialects. In a concrete tank, isolated from these natural stimuli, often kept in artificial social groupings that could lead to tension, their world is reduced to a few concrete walls, a strict feeding schedule, and a performance routine that barely scratches the surface of their profound mental and physical needs. This deprivation, this constant, low-level stress, boredom, and social instability, a condition some researchers termed zoochosis, often led to abnormal, stereotypic behaviors, repetitive motions, self-harm, aggression toward other whales, and in rare but devastating cases, attacks on humans. The captive environment, for all its technological sophistication, could become a pressure cooker. Despite these undercurrents and Titan's documented history, he remained a star performer. He drew crowds, he executed his routines, and, most importantly to Ava, he had for a long time seemed to trust her. Or at least, she had deeply believed in that trust. But in the weeks leading up to that fateful February 17th, something had subtly shifted in Titan. He had started floating listlessly at the surface for longer periods, a behavior trainers knew could indicate disengagement or malaise. He was less responsive to cues, his movements sometimes sluggish, other times uncharacteristically sharp. He began jaw-popping more frequently, a rapid snapping of the jaws that is a known sign of agitation or dominance display in Orcas. The signs were there, subtle perhaps, easily dismissed amidst the daily pressures of show preparation, but they were there. On the morning of the attack, the Florida sun blazed brightly over Ocean World Marine Park. The air buzzed with the excited anticipation of families and tourists pouring into the massive amphitheater for the park's midday Orca spectacular. Backstage, Ava Campbell prepared as she always did, her focus absolute. She ran through her pre-show checklist, her movements efficient and calm. She checked in with the other handlers, her voice a reassuring presence. She watched Titan through the thick underwater viewing glass as he circled the vast performance tank, slowly, deliberately. At 11:46 a.m., Ava entered the poolside platform. Her custom-fitted wetsuit was zipped, her blonde hair tied back neatly, her headset securely in place, ready to narrate the marvels to the captivated audience. The stadium filled with cheers as Titan, on cue, breached the water in a perfect, powerful arc, sending a shower of cool water over the delighted front rows. To the thousands watching, it looked like any other electrifying performance. Smooth, rehearsed, a routine executed with practiced perfection. But for those with a trained eye, like some of Ava's colleagues watching from the control booths, subtle things were off. Titan hesitated on two distinct cues from another trainer before Ava's segment. When it was Ava's turn, he delayed a slide out onto the platform, a usually reliable behavior. His tail slaps seemed more aggressive than usual, creating deeper, more forceful reverberations across the pool surface. Trainers noted it. Ava, attuned to his every nuance, certainly saw it. Still, she continued, her professionalism unwavering, guiding him with practiced movements, reward signals, and calm, reassuring body language. The bond between them, forged over years of daily interaction, was what she relied on, what gave her confidence, perhaps on this day, a tragic overconfidence. At 11:58 a.m., the routine reached a familiar sequence, a close-contact maneuver where Ava stood on a submerged platform, face-to-face with the colossal whale. According to a witness seated in Section B, a season pass holder who had seen the show countless times, Ava extended her arm, signaling Titan for a side swim, a maneuver where the whale would swim closely alongside her. Then, everything changed. In an instant, the practiced grace vanished. The witness described it with chilling clarity. It just changed. The whale dipped under the surface, then came back up, but not in the right spot. It was wrong. Without warning, Titan lunged. His massive jaws, lined with conical teeth designed for tearing flesh, closed around Ava's arm. Gasps, then screams, erupted from the horrified crowd as the Orca, with terrifying, effortless force, yanked her into the crystalline blue water. Chaos ensued. Underwater, a violent, desperate struggle began. Trainers on the edge of the pool, their faces etched with dawning horror, scrambled to deploy emergency signals. Underwater tone generators designed to interrupt and redirect an Orca's focus, a last resort in a situation spiraling out of control. Nets and floating barriers were hastily thrown into the water, attempts to corner or distract the enraged bull. But Titan ignored them. He held Ava beneath the surface, thrashing, turning, diving. Seconds stretched into an eternity, an agonizing minute, then two. Rescue protocols, meticulously drilled but rarely tested in such a dire scenario, were initiated. Staff raced to close the pool's emergency gates, trying to isolate Titan and prevent him from moving Ava into the complex network of back pools, which would make any rescue attempt even more perilous. One trainer, bravely, attempted to lure Titan away with a bucket of fish and urgent vocal commands from the adjacent medical pool, a smaller, shallower area. Titan didn't respond. The crowd, a moment before alive with cheers and laughter, was now a sea of stunned, silent faces, many weeping, parents shielding their children's eyes from the unfolding tragedy. Some, in disbelief, initially thought it might be a dramatic, unplanned part of the show. Others knew, instantly, with a sickening certainty, that it wasn't. For what felt like an endless torment, Titan kept Ava in his grip, surfacing only briefly before diving again, her body still held fast. The water, once a stage for dazzling acrobatics, became a scene of unimaginable violence. Finally, at 12:03 p.m., after what must have been an unbearable 17 minutes for Ava and those watching helplessly, the emergency dive team arrived, clad in scuba gear, ready to enter the water. But park protocol, established after previous incidents and designed to protect other staff, dictated they could not enter the pool while the Orca was still actively aggressive and the situation unsecured. They waited, helpless, their faces grim, watching as the water churned violently. Then, with an awful finality, fell still. At 12:08 p.m., for reasons known only to him, Titan released Ava. Staff, with a desperate urgency, pulled her lifeless body from the water. She was unresponsive. Paramedics attempted CPR poolside as stunned visitors were slowly, somberly ushered from the stands. Children cried, their innocent wonder replaced by confusion and fear they couldn't comprehend. Parents stared, speechless, their faces pale. Ava Campbell was officially pronounced dead at 12:23 p.m. In less than 30 minutes, a celebrated career, a devoted life, and a relationship built with an apex predator over a decade had come to a violent, irreversible end. What caused Titan to snap? Was it the accumulated stress of long-term captivity? Was it a primal instinct reasserting itself? Or was it something more, something complex and perhaps unknowable about the mind of an orca confined? The questions swirled, but clear answers remained elusive. What remained in the pool, after the chaos subsided, was a profound silence and a question that would haunt ocean world, and indeed the conscience of a public fascinated by these creatures, forever. In the hours following the incident, Ocean World went into immediate lockdown. Scheduled shows were canceled. The amphitheater, usually echoing with music and applause, was cordoned off with yellow caution tape, an eerie, silent testament to the tragedy. A short, somber statement was released to the media just before sunset. We are deeply saddened to confirm the passing of one of our most experienced and beloved trainers, Ava Campbell. Our thoughts are with her family, friends, and the entire Ocean World team during this devastating time. We are fully cooperating with authorities to investigate the incident. The park, however, declined to answer any follow-up questions, citing the ongoing investigation. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration launched an immediate and thorough investigation. Federal wildlife officials were contacted. Veterinarians began detailed behavioral assessments of Titan. Hours of show footage were reviewed, frame by painstaking frame. Internal logs were examined, and reports from previous incidents involving Titan, incidents the public had never been told about, were pulled from the archives. The autopsy report was completed within 48 hours. The findings were brutal. Ava Campbell had sustained extensive trauma, blunt force injuries to her chest, abdomen, and neck, several fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and severe pulmonary hemorrhaging. The final cause of death was ruled as drowning, following prolonged submersion and the catastrophic injuries. The medical examiner noted, grimly, that even without the drowning, the internal trauma alone may well have been fatal. Details of the attack and the autopsy leaked to the press within days, and once they did, the public response was immediate and fierce. News outlets across the country and around the world ran headlines that gripped the nation. Orca kills veteran trainer. Tragedy at Ocean World. Killer whale turns deadly. Footage from the moments before the attack. Smiling children, Ava waving to the crowd, the seemingly playful interaction, was replayed over and over on news channels and online, a stark and horrifying contrast to the known outcome. Commentators, animal welfare advocates, and the general public passionately debated the ethics of animal performance in captivity. Former trainers, some bound by non-disclosure agreements, others finally feeling compelled to speak out, came forward with their own stories and concerns. One told a major UK newspaper, "We've been warning about Titan for years. That whale was showing clear signs of distress, of psychological breakdown. No one in management wanted to listen. The show, the profits, always came first." Protests erupted outside the park entrance within days. Animal rights groups, long critical of marine parks, called for the immediate release of all captive orcas. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Justice for Ava. Hashtag Free Titan. Hashtag Shut Down Ocean World. Memorials of flowers, photos, and handwritten letters were set up along the park gates. Some mourned a fallen trainer, a life taken too soon. Others demanded systemic change, an end to what they saw as the exploitation of intelligent, sentient beings for entertainment. The debate was no longer just about a single, tragic incident. It became a flashpoint for the much larger, more profound questions about captivity itself, about animal rights, about how far society has pushed the line between entertainment and exploitation. And through it all, one question kept resurfacing, echoing the sentiments of Dr. Satterfield. Could this have been prevented? And if it could, why wasn't it? The tragedy of Ava Campbell wasn't just a singular event. It was part of a disturbing, recurring pattern, one that has haunted marine parks for decades. It chillingly paralleled the death of Stella Walker, another SeaWorld trainer, just 10 years earlier in 2010, who was killed by Kronos, a large male orca with an even longer and more troubled history of aggression in captivity. Stella's death, too, had been gruesome and public, leading to a federal investigation, a scathing documentary film that exposed the darker side of the industry, and a significant cultural reckoning. Her death became a symbol of a system pushed to its limits. Now, a decade later, Ava's death reignited the very same questions, the very same pain, the very same outrage. Marine biologists have long warned of the profound psychological cost that captivity places on orcas. In the wild, these animals travel vast distances, hunt cooperatively, live in complex matriarchal societies, and communicate using sophisticated, learned dialects. In tanks, their world is shrunk to a fraction of its natural scale, their social structures are often artificially imposed, and their complex needs are, many argue, impossible to fully meet. The 2021 article in Wired magazine, quoting several former trainers, described the orca environment in some parks as a pressure cooker where stress, boredom, and social instability can lead to the abnormal behaviors previously documented. Captivity doesn't just confine an orca's body, it alters its mind. Dr. Jen Sorensen, a marine behaviorist who had studied captive cetaceans extensively, put it plainly in an interview following Ava's death. "We've underestimated them. Orcas remember, they grieve, they strategize, they get bored. And when they do, they sometimes lash out, not because they're inherently monstrous, but because they're sentient, intelligent beings pushed beyond their coping mechanisms in an unnatural environment." The parallels between Ava's and Stella Walker's deaths were striking and deeply unsettling. Both were experienced, dedicated trainers. Both were deeply beloved by their colleagues and, by all accounts, shared a perceived bond with the animals they worked with. And both were lost in facilities that had been repeatedly warned of potential danger from specific animals and, some argued, had chosen to continue with high-risk interactions. What complicates the picture further and makes these tragedies even more poignant is the undeniable emotional bond that trainers often form with these animals. They don't see them as ticking time bombs or mere commodities. They see them and interact with them as partners, as individuals with personalities, even as family. Many trainers, even after such incidents, have stated they willingly accept the inherent risks of working with such powerful animals, driven by their love for them and their belief in the educational and conservational value of their work. But the public, watching from the outside, especially after Ava's death, began asking with renewed urgency, should that risk even exist for human entertainment? At what point does entertainment cross the non-negotiable line into exploitation? The aftermath of Ava's death fueled significant legislative momentum and public pressure. Petitions demanding an end to orca captivity gained millions of signatures worldwide. Lawmakers in several states reopened stalled bills aimed at banning orca breeding and theatrical performances. The public conversation irrevocably shifted from wonder to worry, from awe to accountability. Because when one of the ocean's top predators, an animal capable of such intelligence and social complexity, turns on the one person it seemingly trusted most, it forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about captivity, consent, and consequence. And as the glass of Titan's tank reflected only a somber silence in the days that followed, as the park remained closed and the investigations deepened, it became undeniably clear this was never just about a show gone wrong. It was about a system built on a fragile, perhaps illusory, trust. And that trust, on a sunny February afternoon, had finally, catastrophically, shattered. In the wake of tragedy, there are always echoes. For Ocean World, and for everyone who knew and loved Ava Campbell, and for a world that watched in horror, those echoes became impossible to ignore. Just weeks after the incident, the park announced a complete and permanent suspension of all in-water performances with orcas. Trainers were moved to dry stage, interactions only. Contact protocols were stringently re-evaluated. Emergency procedures were rewritten from the ground up. And while the move was seen by some as an overdue correction, a necessary step towards a more ethical future, others saw it as a hollow response. Too little, too late to save Ava. Still, the changes, however belated, continued. A new, independent department was created within Ocean World specifically to oversee orca enrichment and mental stimulation, with a mandate to prioritize animal welfare above performance demands. Outside consultants, marine biologists, behaviorists, and even some former vocal critics of the park were brought in to help design safer, more ethical training programs and more stimulating habitats, as much as concrete and glass could ever replicate the ocean. The Orca Spectacular, once the glittering centerpiece of Ocean World's brand, was quietly scaled back, its future uncertain. But Ava Campbell's legacy wasn't solely written in policy changes or park reforms. Her family, devastated by the loss but determined to honor her life's passion, chose to channel their grief into something lasting. The Ava Campbell Foundation was formed just 6 months after her death. Its mission, to support marine mammal research, fund safety training programs for animal handlers, and advocate for responsible wildlife stewardship and conservation efforts worldwide. Scholarships were awarded to students pursuing careers in marine science. Donations poured in from around the globe from people touched by Ava's story and her dedication. Colleagues at Ocean World held a poignant candlelight vigil beside the main tank. Trainers stood in somber silence, their wet suits zipped, heads bowed. Flowers floated on the still water. And Titan, the orca who had taken her life, circled slowly, silently, beneath the surface, a massive, shadowed form in the twilight. Friends and family described Ava not as a thrill seeker, but as a caretaker, a listener, someone who believed that trust, even between vastly different species, was sacred. One former coworker, her voice thick with emotion, said she never treated the whales like tools or props. She spoke to them like equals. That's what made her so special, so good at what she did. Another added, she wasn't naive about the risks. She knew these were wild animals at heart, but she believed in the work, she believed in the connection, she believed in her ability to reach them. For many, the tragedy of her death could not be separated from the beauty of her life, a life driven by an unwavering passion, grounded in a deep compassion and devoted entirely to the creature she loved. Ava Campbell's story ended in a horrifying moment of violence, but her legacy continues to live in every conversation sparked by her death, every policy reformed, every young scientist inspired, and every orca, somewhere, perhaps given a little more space, a little more understanding, a chance to live a life closer to what nature intended. Her story is a somber, vital reminder of the complex, often perilous relationship between humans and the wild creatures we bring into our world. It's a story of passion and the profound connections we can forge, but it's also a story of power, confinement, and the delicate, often blurred, line between trust and danger. Her death forced a global conversation, a re-examination of our choices in the name of entertainment, and the very nature of the cages we build, not only with steel and concrete, but with ignorance, profit, and pride. Can true connection, true partnership, truly exist in a space built on control and deprivation? Can we claim to love an animal, to respect its spirit, yet deny it the very freedom that defines its nature? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. As parks continue to evolve and policies begin to shift, one thing becomes starkly clear. Ava Campbell did not die in vain. Her story has inspired a deeper, more critical look at how we treat the animals in our care. It has driven reform, sparked awareness, and brought compassion to the forefront of a difficult, ongoing debate. The work isn't finished. If Ava's story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or question, let that be the beginning. Support marine conservation. Educate yourself on the realities of captivity. Share stories like hers. Speak up for those who cannot. Because behind every performance, behind every glass wall, there is a story. And sometimes, as it did for Ava Campbell, it ends in a silence that demands to be heard. Thank you for listening. If you found this story meaningful, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that matter, the ones that are too important to forget.